So I've already showed you a video of me driving this car, but I didn't really give it a proper walk around. So this is the Fiat Punto 75 from 97. The Fiat Punto 176, which is the code name for this car, was launched in 93. I think in Portugal it was actually in 94, and I think they sold it along with Uno for a couple months. I'm not entirely sure, but I've seen some Unos with very late registration plates, which would have been sold at the same time as this. This was a car that was launched to replace the Uno. The Uno already dated to 84, and it was a great car in many ways, but it was already showing its age. What they did was kind of a revolution, because the Punto almost looks like a mini MPV, which was not common at all. It's relatively tall, and it has all this glass. And if you look at the back, it looks like a Volvo. We've seen many cars with these taillights in this format since then, but this was not common at the time. You can see that this one is almost losing its cap, which is very common in this generation of Puntos. This also helps with access to the boot lid. In typical Italian fashion, you can either open it here, or you have a lever inside the car, but not here. Never mind that mess, you can see that it's a relatively big boot for a car of this size. This car is more or less 3.7 meters long, which is really small. Just to give you an idea, current Clio 5 is more or less 4 meters long. So this is really short. And for such a short car, I could show you in the front, but I'm going to start with the rear. I'm 1 meter and 70, and yeah, I can sit really comfortably here. Bags of space. Even if I park here, you see it's really easy. And there are also bags of space here. Something that I'm actually remembering now. This is a rare extra in these cars. I think HST models actually had this from factory, but this one, I think this was an extra. This one is an ELX. The ELX actually has this different steering wheel. This one still doesn't have an airbag, neither the driver's side nor in the other side. But it does have front fog lights, if I'm not mistaken. It has a rev counter, although I think the SX also had it. It also had central locking, power windows at the front, different door cards from the base models. And I think that in the base models it didn't have the speakers in the doors. Please correct me if I am wrong. You also get speakers here at the back, which I think is great for a small car of this age. It's not that common. Even the reading light and the interior light are very good for a car like this, I think. As you can see, it's still an appealing dashboard, and it's quite an original shape. It's really a quantum leap over the Uno. This is basically a single piece, which should help with rattles. Let's actually sit at the front. Yeah, the doors close decently. Of course, you wouldn't expect Mercedes S-Class. It is different from earlier 75 ELXs because those had the green line all over. And the wheels were also different. They looked like the ones in the GT, I think. Yes, you have a couple scratches in some of the plastics, but you have to bear in mind that this is not a garage queen. This is a car that is used daily and not with a lot of care. Apart from those scratches, you can see that the seats are still in good shape, even with 180,000 kilometers. The steering wheel is okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. And yeah, overall not disintegrating. The only thing that is broken here, I mean, it's not broken, but this doesn't hold in place, and that's why we have this little tab here. Let's look under the hood now. Where is the thing? Okay, it's here. This is difficult with just one hand. Done. This one is a 1242cc engine, and as you can see, this is a multi-point injection engine, and it also has a different camshaft, which is why it produces around 73 bhp, as you would expect from the 75 on the wing. The version with single-point injection and a different camshaft actually only puts out 60 bhp. This is a very reliable engine, very smooth engine, at least in other fields. We shall see how this goes in this car. And it's still a basic car, although it's already fuel injected, it already has a catalytic converter, but you can see there's bags of space to work here. Really simple engine, which means that maintenance in this is a piece of cake, and relatively cheap too. Shall we take it for a drive? Not sure it locks itself alone out of factory. I think this is to do with the alarm that's been installed, but never mind. There's a bit of a knock at idle. It's been going on for a while now. It almost disappeared now. It's still there. It doesn't seem to be coming from the bottom end, so the car apparently doesn't use any oil, doesn't make blue smoke. It has to be looked at, of course, and this car is actually due a belt change, I think. Which is no big deal in this, because if it breaks, you don't have the pistons going against the valves, as in other engines. It just dies, which is not ideal, but it's not a catastrophe. Okay, let's go. The clutch is really easy. I'm just using the clutch now, no gas. Yeah, there's also very, very bad CV joint here. Okay. If we ignore that, which is hard, I guess, the controls are light. There is some torque in second gear coming up this hill. The steering wheel is also light. Driving position is very good. You have this huge glass in front of you and all around. Visibility is very good. I feel that I haven't made it very clear which engines we had in this car. You could have the 1.1 with 55 bhp. You could have the 1.2 with 60. You could have this one with 73 or 75 if you want to round it up. Later on, in 97, the 16-valve engine with 86 bhp replaced this one. And of course you had the 1.4 turbocharged, which could develop 136. I think they actually had 3 different power outputs. They also had diesel engines. I'm not sure if you had more of a version of the 1.7 turbo diesel, which was relatively economical, but unless you really did high mileage, it didn't really make sense because these are very economical. And these are relatively refined. I'm not sure if that comes across, but and I think it goes. If you do this. We're doing 70, 4, let's go down again. And the good thing about this car, about this engine, is that although it might not be brilliant in terms of flat-out acceleration, 1 to 100 is basically 13 seconds, not that quick. Although it has a certain brio, not as much as other early small Italian cars, but the good thing about this one is that it has some torque. It's a bigger engine for such a small car, and even in fifth, it's really good. We're doing 70 in fifth gear. It's relatively short geared, as many Italian cars are, and I don't have a motorway here to show you, but it gets a bit revvy and a bit loud, but here it makes perfect sense. Even here, of course, you can hear some rattles. This is a car that is already 25 years old. It was a cheap Italian car, but it manages to feel somewhat solid. Hell, look. Same color, I believe. But this one is older. This one is from 95, judging from the plate. It's probably 55. I don't particularly like the gearbox. It's a bit bulky, a bit notchy, but it does its job. It does what it needs to do. And driving around town is a doddle because the steering is very light, even if you don't have the CT function that you have in the next generation Punto. It's still really light. The suspension is relatively comfortable. The engine has some torque, as I've already said. The clutch is very easy to use. The brakes are okay. It's very pleasant. Also, that noise was the gator for the gearbox. That's one of the things that is broken in this interior, so don't be alarmed. And this other noise was a big chocolate bar that is here in the door knob. Didn't go over 2,700 RPM. Sure, ignore that I'm here. You and your toilet paper. That was a bit Italian. Let's turn it down a notch. Some people make this to be really unsafe around corners and that stuff, but you really have to be pushing it a bit too much. I think it's okay, it's decent. It's not a great handling car, let's put it this way, but it's not a danger. Don't you do that! Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye! This is what this car was actually made to do. Navigating parking lots easily. And that's exactly what it does. That was easy. This car is surprisingly comfortable. I'm not sure you're doing it the right way, but okay. Let's give it some beans in seconds. It's very audible. You actually don't need to give that many beans to this car. Tell. Cornering. The Punto actually has independent suspension at the rear, but I don't think it is any better than the French competition of the time too. I think those do a lot with that basic setup.